history of the State War Chamber began in the summer 1911 when Elena Andreevna Tretьякova gifted to Emperor Nicholas II a collection of engravings illustrating Russian wars. The collection also included paintings, watercolors, icon maps, and samples of weapons. Some materials were transferred to the Imperial Library and the Tsarskoye Selo Palace administration. In 1912, it was decided to create a museum dedicated to the history of Russian wars with a special building named Chamber Repository of the Collection of Wars of Russia, the construction of which was funded by Elena Andreevna Tretьякova herself.
1914, World War I began. The feast poured in from its lines, and it was decided by the Emperor to create a museum, not just the Russian building, but a museum of the current war. Thus, World War I. The war was completed by 1917. However, as we understand, the museum didn't last long. Revolutionary events prevented it from opening its doors and receiving a large number of visitors. It was closed. The exhibits were sent to various museums. Some were lost and some were unfortunately stolen. Subsequently, the building was transferred to an agronomic institute. During the war, significant damage was inflicted on its museum building. In later years, restoration workshops were located here. Only in 2010 was the building transferred to the museum reserve. A major restoration was carried out here, and for the centenary of the beginning of World War I on August 1st, 2014. The Museum of Russia's Great War was opened.
Construction of the war chamber began in September 1912. A construction council was established for the construction of the war chamber, and architect S.U. Siderchuk was appointed. The idea of building the structure in the style of Novgorod architecture style, supported by Nicholas II, reflected the historical connection between Tsarskoye Selo and Novgorod. The foundation stone of the repository chamber was laid on May 3, 1913. Viktor Vasnetsov served as the artist consultant for the project. The building was equipped with modern amenities including electric lighting and heat. In the spring of 1914, part of the collection was placed in the repository chamber. The establishment of the museum in the war chamber was complicated by the outbreak of World War I. Soon after it began, a decision was made to include a section dedicated to the war in the museum. The initial project only envisioned storing E.A. Tretьяковa's collection, but the building was expanded, and from November 1914 it became known as the State War Chamber. The complex included a 3-story tower and 2-story building with galleries forming a closed courtyard. The hexagonal tower housed portraits of the Knights of St. George, while a large round tower served to store large trophies. The museum's collection was supplemented with military trophies, icons, and paintings.
In late spring 1915, interior painting began, carried out by artist Pashkov. The decor included the manufacture of lighting fixtures, doors, and furniture in the old Russian style. Gallery of Knights of St. George on September 30, 1915, Prince Putyatyn addressed Emperor Nicholas II with proposal to create a George Gallery to commemorate the names of lower ranks, Knights of St. George of high degrees. He emphasized that such portraits would have educational significance and comfort for families and soldiers who fell for their homeland. The proposal was supported, and artists Boyarkov, Strelbov, Kirzanov, Devyatkin were invited to create the portraits. As a result, 58 portraits were preserved in the gallery, which are located in the various museums, including the State Historical Museum and the Military Medical Museum. Before us is a Ford car. Ford cars were very popular in Russian army. They were used as cargo and medical vessels, as well as for mobile information in headquarters. I should note that it's optional. This car, manufactured in 1914, is still running, making it a unique item in this museum. I would also like to mention that alongside aerial warfare in World War I, submarines began to appear. Russia was no exception, and large and interesting designs are presented here, including a reconstruction model of submarine Valorous. You can also see a model for Russian seaplane Grigorovich. Finishing works in the war chamber continued until the 1917 revolution, after which it was renamed People's Museum of the Great War of 1914-1917. In January 1918, Curator Nadezhin informed the new authorities about the need to care for premises cultured with military trophies and valuable items. During the Civil War, part of the collection again became Levon's, and collected trophies were distributed among museums in Moscow and Petrograd. We are currently on the second floor of our exhibition, in a section dedicated to aviation. Of course, the central exhibit of this section must and is airplane. The Russian army often used planes of French design, and you can now see the reconstruction of the Nieuport 17 aircraft. These planes were used by the first Russian aviators. They were equipped with a machine gun. However, I should note that all the early airplanes were wooden and didn't provide full protection. Russian pilots were the first to come up with such an elegant and simple method of self-defense. In our exhibition, we have a simple frying pan, which they would sit on before takeoff. And this frying pan saved many lives, such as Russian engineers. But also to draw your attention to a rare and perhaps unexpected type of weaponry, aviation arrows. They were packaged in bottles of 100, 200 and 300 pieces and dropped from airplanes. Due to their shape, they flew point first and were dropped on mentioned enemies, possessing great destructive power. They could prize through people. In the 1920s, the building was handed over the Agronomic Institute. During World War II, the war chamber suffered greatly from artillery shelling. In the 1970s, restoration of the building began, during which renovations changed its interior and appearance. In 2001, the war chamber received status as an object of cultural heritage of federal significance, and in 2008 it was transferred to the State Museum Reserve Tsarskoye Selo. In connection with this, it was decided to create a museum dedicated to World War I. In 2010-2011, the Research Institute Spetsprojekt Restauracja developed a project for reconstruction and restoration.